Excuse me. Hi, everyone. My name is Blake Tretter, and today I'm going to be talking about my research my research project on prevalent customer influences on marketing campaigns during and post-pandemic. And this project was advised by my amazing advisor, Kylie McGoy. So to start off, it's no secret that the COVID-19 pandemic has had immense impacts on our consumers and our society. And these changes have each brought about major cultural shifts into what we know today as our nation. So these shifts have each created new marketing opportunities for companies to leverage, but each of these opportunities also comes along with a corresponding risk. So in this paper, we focused on 3 of these cultural shifts, being social justice movements, group mentality, and environmental sustainability. So for social justice movements, we're talking Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ plus rights, etc. They have all gained a lot of traction during the pandemic, and this is no coincidence. This has largely been driven by a rise in social media activism. So people have been spending a lot of time online and on social media because of the lockdowns. It was their main form of communication, social interaction, and actually one of the biggest forms of the news, like getting news and information as well. So with people being online and on social media so much more, we've seen a rise in social media activism. And the way that we track this the most is we actually analyzed Google Trends and saw that there was a spike in social justice related terms and vocabulary during the pandemic, and specifically during when the lockdowns were happening. So companies are able to respond to this by diversifying the models in their ads, or even trying to link their products and companies' core values to social justice movements themselves. So there are big marketing risks that come along with taking this, though. Companies do not want to perpetuate any racial or gender stereotypes, and also need to steer clear of tokenism. So, for example, fashion retailer Brandy Melville was just in a recent scandal because they used plus-size models in one of their promotions or ads, and this was widely criticized because they actually don't have any of the sizes to fit these this plus-size population. So definitely that was seen as very inauthentic and was one of the biggest scandals of their company. And also links to social justice can be seen as self-serving or just completely inauthentic or not with the company's core values. So this is sort of when we're incorporating corporate social responsibility into the mix. And the biggest example of this would be when Pepsi ran that ad with Kendall Jenner holding up a Pepsi can and giving it to a police officer in the middle of a BLM protest, right? I think we've probably all seen that or have at least heard of it. That was definitely very controversial because they tried to take this huge idea of the BLM protests and narrow it down to this small solution of a Pepsi can. So that definitely came across as very self-serving and inauthentic as well. So the pandemic, of course, brought about a lot of lockdowns, and with this isolation came along a rise in group mentality, which is the second big cultural shift that we have on here. So many people have sort of adopted this idea of their village or of their kin, and this is also all tied in to the group mentality. And companies are able to better market towards this group of people with this sort of shift in how they're thinking by emphasizing their own local community involvements, as well as supporting community group efforts through philanthropy. So the risk here is that marketers do not want to come across as disingenuous when supporting these small businesses, or they don't want to come across as their ideas not really aligning with what they're trying to say in their campaigns. So for example, Amazon actually recently ran a campaign with supporting small businesses. And while they do support small businesses like third party on their platform, they're actually known for driving small businesses out of business because they are selling these massive bulk things at really cheap, and they're actually supporting a lot of fast fashion as well. So critics have pointed out that their campaign is actually backwards and has actually had sort of a negative effect on how people are viewing Amazon in recent years. So, and as people have been in the pandemic and we're seeing it spread across the entire world, people have actually begun to have more of a global mindset as well. And this has led to an emphasis on environmental sustainability. So companies are able to sort of leverage this new idea by highlighting internal eco-friendly initiatives through philanthropy, but also there are risks with this as well. So some companies have been accused of actually greenwashing, which is a term used to describe when companies deliver an environmental or eco-friendly message without actually backing it up with their company initiatives. So H&M is actually a very big example of this. So H&M is known for, they actually recently in 2019 and 2020, I believe, they ran a campaign where they're showing a lot of eco-friendly initiatives and promoting that from their company and from their manufacturing process, and showing how their clothes are very sustainable. And they're basically bragging about how environmentally sustainable they are. However, critics have noted that they're actually supporting fast fashion in a lot of ways. One, their clothes are not very sustainable. They're actually known for being a little bit of a cheaper quality. And two, their manufacturing is, while it may be eco-friendly in the US, they actually ended up moving a lot of their manufacturing to China, where they're still one of the bigger polluters in the industry. So in conclusion, the COVID-19 pandemic has had immense impacts on consumers and society, and this has affected us in a number of ways, and subsequently has affected marketing in a number of ways. So while companies are able to leverage these changes in their marketing to better attract these new changed consumers, they also have to be careful, as their strategies can backfire a lot if seen as disingenuous or inauthentic, and can definitely just be completely ineffective. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Blake. That was really interesting. I think that the way that you described so many different consequences or after the societal impacts of COVID-19 were really important. So thank you. At this point, I'd love to open it up for questions. If anyone in the group has questions for Blake, anything that people are curious about that they'd like to have Blake address? I guess my question for you, Blake, is what inspired you to work on this topic in particular?
Yeah, so, well, as a little bit of background, I'm a senior in high school. So last year as a junior, I actually took my first business class as an elective, and I completely fell in love with business, and specifically what attracted me was marketing. And I actually joined DECA, which is an international organization for high schoolers involved in business. And I did a lot of marketing related events there and competitions having to do with marketing. And so I kind of came into this project having an already established passion for marketing. But what really interested me was also the consumer behavior, the consumer aspect behind marketing, and how companies are able to leverage different consumers and target different consumers in their marketing. So going into this, I actually learned a little bit about things like color theory or cognitive bias, etc. And those things really interested me, but I didn't really have an outlet to learn about it. My school doesn't offer any psychology classes or really much of the social science side of things. And that's definitely something I wanted to learn about and also incorporate with my pre-existing passion for marketing.
Thank you. Yeah, I see a question from Alexis. I'm going to read that, but a quick response is, as you were talking, I was just thinking how much this has to do with just the psychology of consumerism, right? And how we convince people to buy products. Alexis, your question is, how severe do you think long-term impacts could be from the risks you mentioned? For example, the long-term business impacts for Amazon, et cetera.
So what we've seen so far is actually some of the examples that I listed were from a little bit previous. I think the earliest one was about 2017, 2016 with the Kendall Jenner ad. But with your example that you brought up here with Amazon, I think that this could actually be quite long term. So what we're seeing now is sort of the short term side of it is I really don't want to shop at Amazon or shop at H&M, Pepsi, whatever. So there's definitely a bit of a spike in, I don't really think I'm going to go here or shop here, support this business. But in terms of the long-term aspect, what I would predict would happen is that it will slow down a little bit. The buzz around it will probably sort of plateau. And I think it'll still be in the back of consumers' minds. I don't think it'll be affecting them as severely as it would maybe within the first few months of it happening. But I definitely think it will leave a lasting imprint on the company and how people are viewing the company's initiatives or authenticity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. So just because we're at time, we are going to, Blake, I'm going to ask that you just, actually, I believe you can either do it or I can also have you just minimize your screen, like take off your shared screen. And then now we are going to welcome, just pull up my notes. We're going to welcome Chahel Nerusu. Also, for everyone in the room, I know we're running a little late. If you could stay, that would be wonderful, just so we can really make sure that we are supporting the students that have worked so hard on their project. So, Chahel, if anyone, are you okay with staying on a little longer? Let's see. Oh, perfect. You have until 9:10. Perfect. Okay. So, Chahel, are you able to share your screen?
Can you see it now?
Chahel, yes. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, perfect. I'm so glad that worked. Okay, so Chahel, so you have, am I pronouncing your name correctly, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So Chahel, you have 5 minutes to do your poster presentation. I will leave the room, or not leave the room, but minimize my shared screen, and I will come back when you have 2 minutes left. Okay?
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Hi. So my project was on a gesture controlled drone, and my inspiration came from the movies that I grew up watching. Seeing Darth Vader fling objects across the screen made me ponder whether this could be done in real life. The premise of my project is to create a drone that responds to hand gestures. For example, pointing up would make the drone fly up. In order to accomplish this project, I had to go through a trial and error process where I had to test to see if something could be useful to fulfill the task, and if it wasn't, I had to find another method. So, to start it off, I decided to use a glove as a way to isolate my hand from a background. That way, the camera will better be able to identify my hand, and it would not mix my hand with the background. And to make the neural network model that I needed to help the drone identify which hand gesture means what, I used the training data set. And the training data set basically um, it is it is a it is a bunch of pictures or images that I took, and that was used to train the model, and the model basically identifies any relationships or any trends and uses that to predict what the hand is showing. So, and in order to understand what is truly going on, I'm going to be going over some definitions. And by binary images, I'm talking about black and white images. And a neural network is a network of computing systems that were created to recognize any underlying relationships. A dataset is often a group of photos that are used to train the machine learning model. And a dataset must have classifications or categories that can be created by separating datasets into folders. And for a visual representation, you can see that this is the test, train, and validation folders. And in each folder, there's another subset of folders, each one representing a certain hand gesture. And in each of these folders, there are groups of images that I made to train the model. And so the process is, so first I had to make a base code that masks images. Masking images is the process of creating a layer where certain pixels that fall under a pixel spectrum are separated. I tested the base code on an image and it worked. So I decided to use that base code to filter the rest of the data set into black and white images so the model can better see where the hand is. So I had to make a total of 8 videos. Each video was designated to a certain hand position. I record myself holding up the hand and moving it across the camera to try and capture as many possible positions for each hand gesture. I created 2 different data sets. In order to make these 2 different data sets, I created a program that creates an image for each frame in the video. So essentially, I would be taking a 30-second video, and it would basically chop that video into multiple images. And so one data set was binary, which was black and white images, and the other data set was RGB, which had color. So one of my experiments was to see if using color made a difference on the accuracy of the model, and it turned out that it did. So yeah, and I essentially had to use the model for I used the binary model for when I used 2 dense layers, and I used the RGB when I used 50 convolutional layers. And so the different folders, which are test, train, and validation, 80% of the original images were put into the training folder, and 10% was put into the tests folder, and the other 10% was put into the validation folder. And so basically the differences is that the training is used to train the model, and the testing folder is used to test to see if the model is working accurately, and the validation is to fine tune the model to get a better accuracy. So I found that using 2 dense layers was not as accurate. I ended up getting 40%, but when I used 50 convolutional layers, I got 99%. And so the next step was to save my neural network model into my computer and then test to see if it worked. So when I did test it, I had an accuracy of 99%, which is extremely good. But the problem was that when I did try it on my hand, it kept giving me the same output, which was backwards. So this was a pretty significant roadblock, and I had to work around it. So to do that, I started to use this hand detection model that you can see over here. And that is currently what I'm working on right now, and it's still a work in progress. So hopefully once we can get that, we can better crop out the hand, so maybe the model will better be able to understand the certain hand gesture that we're displaying. And potential use cases for this gesture controlled drone could be by the police or the military to perform tasks that might be too dangerous. The drone could be performed to act in a certain way to certain hand signals or gestures, which can be extremely useful in the law enforcement field. Another use case is that a swarm of drones can be controlled with one hand, and that could be used to perform any heavy lifting, or it could be used to remove people from unsafe environments. For example, like the swarm of drones could be used to airlift someone in case of a flood. And another one is that the drone could be used to help someone that's mute talk, and that's because they could use hand gestures and they could display that to the drone, and the drone would be able to translate what the hand signals that they're portraying, and then play what they're saying through a speaker, so that way they might feel like they're talking. And credits to Ross Gear, my mentor, for helping me out through this process.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chahel. I really, this is so out of my area of expertise, and it was so interesting to hear how your mentor and you were able to develop this drone. It's something that I don't do at all with my students, so it was really, really interesting to hear. Thank you. I'm wondering if anyone in the chat has any questions for Chahel. Alexa says, excellent pacing and mention of the various applications. Absolutely. What was the difference? So Alexis has a question for you, Chahel. What was the difference that you found between the RGB and binary?
So the main difference was that I found that when I used the binary images, the neural network was better able to predict, so it was more efficient with black and white images rather than RGB images. However, when I used the 50 convolutional neural network model, it doesn't actually take binary images, and it only uses RGB, so I had to use that one. So at the end, I didn't really use the binary images.
Got it. Thank you. All right. Well, with that being said, that does put us at time. So we will wrap up for today. I really encourage you to everyone here in the chat to just continue checking out different sessions. There are different panels going on later today. There are a lot of different opportunities for you to get involved and see what other people in the Polygence community have been up to. So, feel free to look at the schedule and check out other things that might interest you. All right. With that being said, thank you, everyone. And I hope that you enjoy your rest of the day at the symposium.